do me a favor and would you be able to give me kind of a breakdown of what the new series is about?
Yeah, Dead City is the first sequel series to The Walking Dead,
Mhm.
and it follows Negan and Maggie from that original show. We pick up a few years after the original show ends, um, and basically Maggie has to find Negan for his help to venture into Manhattan to retrieve Herschel, her son.
Mhm.
And along the way, they get into a bit of trouble. Uh, we we meet people who have been inhabiting Manhattan for the past 15 odd years and see how they've been living and start to learn about what's been going on outside of rural Georgia and places like that.
Excellent. So, um, now there were only 6 episodes in this first, I guess, this batch. And what kind of themes did you go for when creating the kind of the musical soundscape of this new storyline?
Yeah, there's a few different sides to the musical score in this show. First and foremost, we're in a brand new location. We're in New York City, which has been basically when the apocalypse happened, it was cut off early on. Like they destroyed all the bridges and tunnels as a way to try and keep the infection in. Obviously, it didn't help very much, but so it's been kind of on its own for a long time and has gone down a dark path. So that really influenced the sound of the score in a huge way. We did a very synth heavy score that also utilized a lot of organic samples that were like heavily processed and torn apart and put back together again. Um, but outside of just the landscape, we also have these characters who are dealing with years and years of trauma at this point and dealing with a ton of emotional baggage. So a lot of the score is actually very subtle and poignant, and it's really just trying to support the dialogue that's happening on screen. Although there are also a few moments where we kind of go off and let distorted guitars rip out and stuff like that.
Excellent, excellent. Did were you a fan of the original series? Did you work on the original series at all? And
I never worked on it, but I was definitely a fan. I
mm,
still remember watching the very first episode and just
mhm.
being absolutely terrified, and thought it was incredible. I think I watched the first 8 seasons, so I saw almost all of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, and even though I wasn't consistently watching the last few seasons, I kind of kept up with it. I would read recaps and keep up with what's happening. So I've always been very curious, and but I had nothing to do with it until I got the call about a year ago about this thing.
Man, and I don't know, what were your initial thoughts? And was it like, oh my God, you know, can I do this? Or
Yeah, that was a big one. I mean, one, it was like, wow, I can't believe they thought of me. Two, can I do this? Three, I want to do this, but it's very daunting because there's 12 years worth of a show before and a couple other spin-off shows that have all done an amazing job of expanding this universe. Like, can we pull this off? And I think I kept asking myself that even while I was working on the show. But no, I had such a good time with it. I'm really proud of how everything came out. I think we did achieve something really cool within this universe, and hopefully are showing audiences things they hadn't seen before, and hopefully it wouldn't even imagine they would have seen in this universe. So I think it's a very cool project to be a part of. I feel super grateful.
I I love speaking with composers because they have such like a huge influence on the project itself. They bring a specific mood and a tone, and just really, when done well, it just really enhances the entire production. When did you come on? Let's talk about the process for a bit, because like, did you come on as it was being written, or after it was already a rough cut and you could begin composing?
Uh, a little in between. I got hired last July, and they'd already written it and they were in pre-production.
Okay.
They didn't actually start shooting until early fall, I believe. So I came on pretty early. I was actually part of a team of like the whole creative team where we kind of showed our, it wasn't our pitch because it was already getting made, but it like showed our creative direction for the show to the president of AMC, which was a bit nerve-wracking on my part because I'd never been part of something like that before. But yeah, they really wanted music to be a foundation of this show, and uh, let everyone know from the get-go that we were going to do something different and that we weren't going to utilize anything from the original series in this. And then, so I did write some music early on. I wrote like a 10-minute suite fairly early to kind of just start getting the wheels turning, get like a sound palette together, start to introduce like this could maybe be a Negan theme, this could maybe be the Barazzi, stuff like that. And it wasn't until later in the fall that I actually started getting episodes and at Square in a Picture where I feel like we really started to dig our heels in and figure out what the sound was really going to be. Because that initial suite was a great starting point, but we really took it a lot further than that even showed.
And you mentioned a possible theme for Negan. How did you even approach coming up with a melodic theme for that type of a character?
Yeah. Uh, it was interesting because he is such an interesting character. I mean, he's so everyone knows him as this evil villain. Um, and I don't know how much was explored at the end of the original show, but in this show, like we see so many other sides to him. He really explains himself, saying he's done horrific things, but he was always doing it out of protection for his people. He was always doing it because he felt like he had to, because it was out of necessity, which is, I guess, controversial, but you know, he has a stand on it at least. Um, and then you get a bit more of his backstory. You see how he's been through. You see that even he has drawn the line at points, and there's other people from his past that took it further, and like he would say, like, no, like we can't do this. Um, so his theme kind of had two sides to it. The one that we hear the most is very dark. It's when Negan's at his darkest place and it's kind of like the evil Negan theme. And it's this ascending bass note going down. Uh, but then when we get to the end of the season, it's not like a redemption arc, but it's you have this like moment of like longing and like sweetness for him in a way. And that theme comes back, but then we have like these beautiful string chords on top of it, and it feels like a completely different piece, but it is still based off of that descending line. Um, so I think Negan might have the most interesting musical journey through these 6 episodes for sure.
Well, definitely a Negan fan because he's just so awful. But
Yes.
it's like, it's fun to explore that soundscape. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and in particular, were there instruments for him? Was it just synth, or you did mention strings?
Uh, his main thing was based around a low piano. It's like a piano that's also being played like an octave down, so it sounds very bassy. And I might have layered some guitar underneath that or something just to kind of really like weight it down a bit.
Mhm.
It wasn't until this one moment in the final episode where I introduced a bit of lushness on top of it.
Mhm. So what is the secret to creating a score that enhances but doesn't intrude?
Uh, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Um, that honestly, that was something we talked about a lot in the show, and I went through a ton of revisions on every cue because we really wanted the music to do just that. We wanted it to be there and support, but we didn't want to go over the top if it didn't call for it. We didn't want it to be too saccharine and cheesy. That's why it's not the most melodic score, but it's because we didn't feel like it was too necessary for most of the time. We wanted to just support the story that's being told on screen. Like there's these really amazing conversations with some of our characters. And it's like, if I put a melody on that, I think it would just take away from what they're saying. I'm like, I want to hear what they're saying.
Mhm.
So I think it's always just like a less is more situation for the most part.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, granted that there are some action scenes in this where like it's pretty much I'm throwing everything I can at it, and it's just blisteringly loud in my studio, and everything's distorted and crazy sounding. But uh, it's because it called for it, and then otherwise we try and really peel it back and uh, it's funny, like Eli Journay, our showrunner slash creator, would always just say, like, it's not really an action zombie show, like it's more talking about like emotional trauma and baggage and dealing with your past. Like that's really what's driving this forward. It's the action scenes are amazing, but they're kind of like icing on the cake. It's like the meat of it really is what's happening inside his characters' heads.
Mhm. And you brought up action scenes, and speaking of the zombies, how did you compose for them? Was it just a bunch of chaos?
At times it was, yeah. They're all a bit different. It depends on what kind of situation we're in. There's moments where it's a slow chase. They're slowly coming after you, but they're growing in number and it's more and more. There's some situations where we're seeing walkers in a way we've never seen them before.
Mhm.
And those I think really just kind of that's where it's just chaos and it's so many different instruments playing at once and there is distorted strings and guitar riffs and like pounding drums. But yeah, it varies, and I think it kind of grows throughout the 6 episodes as well. Like we see walkers very early on, even like the first scene of the whole series. But then we keep finding new ways to reintroduce them to us, and it gets pretty chaotic by the end.
And you guys had, I guess AMC Plus had its biggest premiere.
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw that. It's
so
incredible.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Uh, do you see this, I don't know, becoming a thing, growing some?
You mean like additional seasons?
Mhm.
I hope so. Um, I know there's been chatter about where it could go next.
Mhm.
I don't think anything official has been said or greenlit, so I really don't know, and I don't think we will know until the writer's strike is over either. But
Yeah, yeah.
I sure hope so. I feel like there's so much more to explore. One with these characters, two with the setting of New York, and three musically. I think we can really just go nuts with it.
I mean, is there any chance of maybe a scene on Broadway with like a big showstopper number?
Um, there is a scene, I won't spoil it, but there is a scene where that almost happens, kind of. I don't know how
Oh,
much you've seen. I think it's in episode, what is it, 4 or 5? Um, there's a scene in a theater, that's all I'll say.
all right, all right. That was a good tease. Okay, well, Ian, again, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you to kind of dig deep into the score of this new series. And yeah, hope to be able to talk to you again.
Thank you so much.
Everybody, Ian Holtquist, composer of The Walking Dead, Dead City, and that is on AMC Plus now. Ian, it was a pleasure.
Great talking to you.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, bye.